Gin was consumed by everyone. It was drunk by children. It was a true epidemic. In the 1980s, we had crack cocaine. In the 2000s, there was a problem with crystal meth. And now in 2025, fentanyl is the major drug problem. But what was going on in 1751? In 1689, we were at war again with the French. This became known as the 9 Years' War. And because of this war, we decided to put a stop to the import of French spirits and wines. This led to a massive increase in the distillation of spirits, and primarily in gin. This caused a drop in the price of gin lower than any other alcoholic beverages. There was a massive surge in the popularity of drinking gin. So in 1700, the per capita amount that was drunk was half a gallon, which is actually still quite a massive amount of gin. But by 1743, this went up to 2.2 gallons. This is 10 litres of gin that was being drunk. This caused a drop in the price of gin lower than any other alcoholic beverages. Remember, this is including children, old people, everyone. In 1751, old William Hogarth wanted to highlight this problem, so he created a couple of images. One was called Gin Lane and the other was called Beer Street. Gin Lane depicted a debaucherous scene. In the centre of the image, there is a woman with her breasts hanging out and a baby that she's dropping. There were many reports of this kind of thing happening, and this is the reason why it became known as Mother's Ruin. In the bottom left-hand side of the image, there is S. Gripe, the pawnbroker, who's obviously doing really well. He's got himself quite a nice house. He's stitching up some people who will be desperate for their gin. Now, I have come to Covent Garden, which in the 1700s would have been a pretty sketchy place. Certainly not all of the nice boutiques, but this is very much the kind of area where this image would be depicting. I mean, it's pretty cool now. Gin was consumed by everyone. It was drunk by children, and in one part of the image you see a mother feeding her baby some gin. It was a true epidemic. In the top right hand side, one of the buildings that has mostly collapsed, inside it shows someone who's hung themselves. The pole out of the front of his building was the classic one of a barber shop. So we're led to believe that he could have gone out of business from people's lack of care about their appearance. In the bottom left of the image, you see people helping other people to consume the gin. In the bottom right-hand corner of Gin Lane, there is what looks like dead man, and in his basket is a pamphlet about the dangers of gin. One part of this scene is particularly gruesome and debauched, and it shows a man who's holding above his head a set of bellows, maybe whacking himself in the head. Who knows, maybe it's just that he's too drunk to even know what he's doing. But he has a huge spike, and impaled on that spike is a baby. And behind this is a woman who looks absolutely distraught. But that wasn't the only image that Hogarth did for this campaign. He also did one called Beer Street. This was the opposite. This showed a scene of plenty. There were two versions of this image made. The first version has a blacksmith lifting a Frenchman. Hogarth had been arrested and detained in Calais a few years earlier on suspicion of being a spy. He regularly showed his animosity to the French in his artwork, though it is thought that this somewhat Brexiteer-like statement took away from the intention of the image. In Gin Lane, outside the pawnbroker, there are a couple of children, and they are holding aloft a bone with barely any meat on, and that is in contrast to Beer Street, where instead of patriotically holding a Frenchman, our blacksmith now holds a massive chunk of meat. Below these kids is a bar that sells gin. And over the door is a sign that says, "Drunk for a penny, dead drunk for 2p, clean straw for nothing." Now this refers to you being allowed to pass out drunk on their hay bales for free. On a table is a copy of the King's Speech, as beer drinkers concern themselves with the important matters of state. In the centre, at the back of the image, we see the builders going about their work. This is a place of affluence. A buxom lady is being carried in a sedan chair, though it does look as though her porters have needed to take a rest from this job. And this image comes with a reminder of the dangers of gin, whereas everyone else in the image is looking well dressed and well fed. The man painting an advert for a gin distillery is looking gaunt and weary and in ragged clothes. This is a sign of the industry of gin in decline. The image was in support of the Gin Act, which came in 1751, the same year as the image. This act raised the cost of grain, it made it way harder for wholesalers, it made it way harder to produce the gin. And it did have a very positive effect. The consumption of gin went from 8 million gallons in 1750 to only 2 million gallons in 1760. So they were the famous images by William Hogarth. And right now I am quite near to Covent Garden, but it's getting light, people are starting to go to work, and I think it's time for my mid-morning nap.